Welcome to the Sage Intacct for Professional Services product tour. As a professional services firm, you need to ensure that your projects are profitable and your customers are happy. Whether you're running a marketing and advertising agency, an IT services provider, a consulting firm, or any other specialized services business, Sage Intacct gives you smooth operational workflows and greater financial visibility. Accounting for a service-based business is not always easy. Manually processing and patching together countless spreadsheets and legacy software can be tough. With Sage Intacct, your data moves seamlessly across your organization, and thanks to pre-built integrations into hundreds of other business applications, Sage Intacct works the way you want to run your business. So today, we'll show you how you can free up more of your time to think strategically and guide your organization. You'll see how you can slice and dice your data with real-time multi-dimensional reporting and consolidate all your entities in minutes. No more spreadsheets needed. We can help you automate manual and repetitive tasks to increase your team's efficiency by up to 90%. With Dimensions, you can tag transactions as well as operational data, which gives you an entirely new way to track and report your key metrics while simplifying your chart of accounts. But you want to see it in action, so without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to our Senior Solution Consultant, Taylor Brown.
All right, y'all, let's jump into the product tour for Sage Intacct for Services Organizations. We'll start out with a brief introduction. My name is Taylor. I'm a Senior Solutions Consultant here at Sage Intacct. I have been working with FinTech for the past 5 years, and I have a specialty in working with software services and nonprofit organizations. I have worked in seat leveraging Sage Intacct as a reporting analyst for an FP&A organization. I've also worked at companies like Amazon as well, supporting their finance and accounting teams. You might have me or hear me leverage some of my own personal stories as we walk through this product tour today. All right, so we're going to start out by first talking about projects. So we'll go through some project records, we'll get into resource management, how we can track time and expenses, and then we'll invoice out on the projects that we've been talking about. Then we'll get into reporting on these engagements, how we track the data that we are tracking and then leverage it to drive decision-making. And then we'll get into financial management, so really closing down our books so we have more time to utilize the reporting that's now being created in our system. So first thing I want to preface before we jump into the solution is that Sage Intacct is the #1 project-based ERP solution as rated by users, 1,600 users you can see here at the top of the page. So this is from a G2 report. G2 allows peers or users to actually go in and rate and review different platforms. We always like to say, don't take our word for it, take the word of your fellow peers and see that we are one of the best project-based solutions that you can leverage within the marketplace today. I also like to note that we are a flexible solution. So we have open APIs, we integrate seamlessly with other best-in-class platforms like Salesforce, like project management tools like Cantata. We can integrate with best-in-class AP tools like Bill.com. So as you think about your enterprise architecture, your platform ecosystem, Sage Intacct can be the center of that ecosystem and then connect with the solutions that you are currently utilizing that are also best in class today. All right, so let's jump in and talk about projects. So a couple things to note before we dive into a project record. Sage Intacct is a role-based solution. Depending on your role, you have permission to access different workflows, transaction records, reports. These can be leveraged and accessed through the drop-down menu, through your favorites, through bookmarks, or through some Google-like functionality that we call the global search. So easy to come in, edit, make adjustments to transactions, to update information, to track insights, as long as you have permission to do so. We're going to go through a plethora of dashboards today. Dashboards are configurable. They're easily shareable with outside users. You can also clone pre-configured dashboards, create your own, or come in and make adjustments to dashboards that are delivered to you after your implementation process. So point and click, drag and drop. I would like to preface, everything in the system is at point and click, drag and drop. You'll hear during the sales cycle us reference our solution as an accounting system made by accountants for accountants. And all that really means is we like to keep things simple. We want you to focus on managing your business from a back office perspective so you can actually help the front office to make data-driven decisions. And we do that by keeping the platform simple and easy to use while tracking data in a seamless and efficient fashion that you then get from a reporting perspective to share with key stakeholders. All right, so let's jump in first to a project record. We'll talk about the inception of projects out of the tool. So projects can be created by adding projects from scratch. They can be created by going into a template, editing that template, and then duplicating it as a starting point. They can be created by pulling in project-based information via CSV, or they can originate in an outside platform, such as a CRM or a PSA tool. So a few different ways I can get projects into Sage Intacct. I've already created projects for us today. So we're going to dig into 2 different records, and then we'll see some of the information and insights you can keep track of. So on these project records, you are storing information such as the project name. We have that unique identifier that's going to tie that project again to outside tools like our CRM. It also allows us to easily search for a project within Sage Intacct. My projects can have additional fields or selections made, such as categorizations and project types, which can provide me with additional context and detail. I associate this to a customer, add in my beginning and end date, and then I have that project status to help restrict certain transactions from being booked against this project if it is not necessarily in progress, maybe on hold or still in that opportunity phase. We also can, of course, tie a project manager directly to this record. And in my additional info tab, I'm keeping track of how much time we've actually worked against this project, or how much we've completed, I should say, since this is a fixed fee project. I can track information such as the billing type. So here we have fixed fee, time and materials, fixed fee and expense, as well as things like favorable terms that are being offered to these customers, the currency being leveraged if we're a multi-entity organization, and as well as additional documents, so MSAs, SOWs that need to be tracked against this record. We're going to start doing our dimensional tagging, which is going to then flow onto the AR invoice, onto the AP invoice, onto timesheets, onto employee expenses, so I don't have to keep rekeying in information. And then I'm also going to make sure I staff these projects correctly, which we'll talk about in a moment when we dive deeper into time and expense. Our project summary provides context and clues in terms of our revenue, what's been deferred, what's been billed, what costs we have tied to this engagement. I'm storing budgeted billing amounts, budgeted costs, and budgeted durations, understanding the efficiency of my engagement down to the hours, whether those are non-billable, since again, this is a fixed fee project, or whether I have cost actually tied to this engagement as well. So I'm starting to get some great color and detail. I also have access to Gantt charts as well that I can leverage in the system, and I can access those from my list view or directly from my project records. I can set up controls around invoicing, issuing warnings, preventing billings if we exceed certain budgeted amounts. And then of course I can set up tasks tied to the project, task dependencies, and then keep track of whether these tasks are milestone based, whether we are actually observing percentage of completion at the task level, and even tying resources directly to tasks within the system. So easy again for me to manage my projects, setting up these project records in the system. And as a project manager, I can always come into the tool, track this information, getting good detail and context from my dashboard views, getting information and insights on things like hours worked, labor costs, total costs, revenue, gross profits, actuals versus budgets, all the way down to that task level. And I can leverage my dimensions, such as my customer dimension, looking at regional information to filter that detail, to dive down deep into the information and drive that decision-making process. So simple and easy again for me to create these project records. These project records are going to drive my invoicing to that end customer. And it also is a means of tracking any sort of project cost against a specific engagement. And it's its own dimension. So I could always go into the system and actually filter directly by those projects themselves. All right. So we just walked through projects. Projects are easy to create in the system. And now we're going to talk about the insights that I can track against projects in more depth. So getting into project costing, I want to understand my time. I want to understand my employee expenses. I want to understand my pass-through costs. And I'll be able to do that all on my project record. We're going to actually leverage some artificial intelligence to actually track time effectively and efficiently. And then we'll get into reporting after we walk through our billing process. Again, any system we're integrating with that is involved in your workflow for your service organization can be integrated with Sage Intacct as long as they have open APIs. And if you want more information on that, I encourage you to reach out to our team. So let's jump back into the tool and actually walk through time and expense. All right, so now we're going to look at a different type of a project record. That project record is going to be a time and expense project, and that is going to help us take a deeper dive into how we track time and expense against our engagements. So we'll go back to our project list view here. So this project, similar feel, similar vibe, and I'm able to get into my additional info though and see that this is time and materials, and I've checked off my billable employee expenses and my billable AP and PO transactions. On this project summary, you can actually see that I have some actual billings, I have some billable hours, as well as some billable expenses that have been passed through to that end customer. So a lot of great detail that's on this project page. This has some additional information that's being tracked because now we're billing hours and we're billing expenses. Time is easy to invoice on in Sage Intacct. It's also easy to track against engagements from a costing perspective. We're going to do this with artificial intelligence. This is getting into Sage Intacct, consistently looking for ways to create a smart GL. Our AI functionality helps our resources actually determine exactly how much time they need to track on a weekly basis. We are going to be leveraging AI, connecting to a time assistant, to your calendar, to your email, to say, how long have I spent on this event, on this task, in this tool? And is that associated to a project? And if it is, the system is going to create an activity card. You'll be able to drag and drop that insight and then make sure that you submit your timesheet effectively and efficiently, which is going to alleviate up to $10,000 in revenue leakage that businesses are seeing on a regular basis due to inaccurate time tracking. This is also a mobile application, though I'm going to demo it in the desktop today. So here we have Sage Intelligent Times. Again, it's utilizing AI to create these activity cards with a time assistant by connecting to a calendar, by connecting to your email. The employee or the resource controls this data. So this isn't a big brother tool, it's an efficiency tool. So you are able to determine what data sources you connect to from an AI perspective. You don't have to connect to any. You also can just leverage manual time entry, adding in rows in the historical way. Or you can take these activity cards, which are going to pre-populate your dimensional tagging as it gets smarter over time, and then drag and drop that context and detail to create time entries in the system. An approver can also approve time entries now directly from their mobile app, leveraging Sage Intelligent Time. This is syncing automatically with Sage Intacct, which allows you then to seamlessly submit your timesheets efficiently and effectively at the appropriate time to help alleviate that revenue leakage that we were seeing. You can also track time and expenses within Sage Intacct. So I could actually come into the system and create expense reports directly within the tool. I can always view these expense reports if I am an approver. I can approve them if I'm an approver, of course, as well. And I can see things like the meal type or the expense type in this case. I can attach receipts. I'm going to tag that project ID. And if it's a billable expense, I'm going to tag that so then we can pass through that end cost. So again, nice and easy for me to manage these engagements, tracking employee expenses, tracking time against these engagements, as well as creating AP transactions, so vendor bills or POs, and then marking those as billable as well, and then passing through those end costs to our customer if it's a billable transaction. So now we'll actually jump into the system and do that. So it's easy for me to bill for either that percentage of completion that we saw in that project record, that employee expense that we just took a look at, the time that's been booked against this engagement, or any sort of subcontractor expenses that we're passing through by leveraging my generate invoice page here. This is going to allow me to search by customer, by project, and very easily find what is available for me to actually invoice on. In this case, I looked for Nirvana, my customer as a whole, because I have 2 projects that I want to invoice on. And now I can see I have some time entries. I can select all the time entries to invoice on. I'm just going to select a few here. I have some employee expenses I can invoice on as well. And I can also invoice on my subcontractor expense here. And if I have questions on the expense that I'm invoicing on, I can always get down into that transaction record and see right here that's a subcontractor expense for $1,500, and that looks good to go for me. Once I actually decide that I am comfortable with what we're invoicing on, as well as you can see here, this fixed fee project, I'm invoicing on 10% because we had 10% percentage of completion, I can go in and actually create my invoice. Once I create my invoice, I'll look at my invoice run, and I can easily see the PDF that was created out of the system, and you can have these created in summary or detailed views, and then share those with your end customer. Because this process is so seamless, now we are decreasing our DSO. So we're getting these invoice transactions to our customers effectively and efficiently. They're able to pay us quickly, so we can lower the aging that we're seeing from an AR perspective and then get that cash back to the business to use to reinvest. And here you can see I have my project fees, I have my billable expenses. It even tells me it's a meal. And I can see my subcontractor expense. All the way down here, it tells me my total, and these are flexible templates. Again, you can add labels, you can add different formats, you can even create different views for different customers, all because Sage Intacct's flexible, it's efficient. Again, that accounting tool made for accountants by accountants, allowing you to easily come in, track your data in detail directly in the system. So just to reemphasize, Sage Intacct has 2 million projects being run on the platform today. We are helping customers like the ones that you see here on the right side of the page increase their efficiency, so increase revenue, increase your profit margins, increase your billable utilization, so the effectiveness and the efficiency of your employees, as well as making sure that we are invoicing accurately, increasing our time cycles, and making sure that our gross margins are increasing as well. I also want to note that in terms of these projects, it was really easy for me to determine which employees to actually staff on these engagements with my resource management functionality. So I did want to touch on that before we move forward. So I'm actually able to go into my project records and actually determine which resources we want to leverage. I can keep placeholders on these project records. So I could come in, store a consultant here as a placeholder. And then when I'm ready to actually find a consultant to work against this engagement, I can look by that employee group, look by a specific entity, search for specific skill sets, and then see what employees actually fit that criteria, and then staff them on this engagement. So Chuck's already a part of this process, so I don't need to restaff him, but I could have easily selected him, added him to the project, and then continued forward. So I actually don't need this placeholder. I even get resource capacity, insights, and information, seeing who's overbooked, who's out of office, if we're over budget. And then this allows me to actually start tracking utilization information. So it's easy for my resource manager to understand what we need to do from a staffing perspective. So here you're seeing I have utilization detail by title, by quarter, by employee. You've seen that I also have some project-based insights and information, looking at some information like project financials. I have the ability to drill in all the way to the transaction level. So anytime I see blue numbers, blue words, that's a drillable field, that's a drillable area. So I can always understand the story behind my data in detail. So now I could easily understand how many active projects do I have in a specific location by a specific project manager. I could filter that data in detail, see the KPIs tied to that, see utilization trends, move into my project manager dashboard to get more color in detail, seeing insights like hours worked, labor's costs, other expenses, and then start getting into my actual versus budget detail, viewing my insights by fixed fee analyses as well as by task, and then make sure that I'm also staffing and approving timesheets at the appropriate time, all while leveraging my dimensions to segment my data and information. So a lot of great detail here. Allows me to seamlessly track my transactional information, manage my projects efficiently and effectively, while also making sure that I'm getting the reporting that I need to understand my business, to seek out additional funding, or to make sure that we're growing and expanding at an appropriate rate. This is a great transition into project-based reporting. So I just walked through these different dashboard views. You got to see that I have project reporting that is coming out of the box that can be applied directly to my dashboard. So all those reports we just clicked through were out of the box reports directly able to be utilized within the system. I'm also going to walk through some of our advanced reporting as well as our planning tool as well, because if you actually expand out into advanced reporting, leveraging what we call the Interactive Visual Explorer or the Interactive Custom Report Writer, you actually extend out your library of project-based reports. For example, with ICRW now, I can get into project cost forecasting, seeing what my costs are going to look like by project in the future. I could have even had this as a quick tag where I could actually drill down to that project record as need be. I could do the same thing for revenue, forecasting out what that will look like on a project by project basis. And then I have the ability to actually go in and leverage the Interactive Visual Explorer to analyze my projects, go into meetings with the head of ops, have great conversations about the status of my engagements, utilize these attributes, drag and drop, adjust my X and Y axis, and then utilize the narrate functionality to create PowerPoints, images, and visuals to share out with key stakeholders. All of these reports out of the box or advanced reporting can also be added to dashboard views. So this is really moving us out of Excel, moving us just out of dimensional analysis to really diving deep into our trends, analyzing those transactions with ICRW, viewing the trends with IVE, and then sharing the information out with key stakeholders, leveraging IVE as well. I also like to preface that on top of the forecasting reports around cost and revenue, you can leverage our advanced planning tool to plan for the future, actually getting into our project planning dashboard here, looking at revenue per employee, commission services for our service organizations, labor costs by employees, project profits, or travel expenses by employee type. You can get into your different models that have been created to actually start seeing bookings by services or service revenue. You can see this by fixed fee. You can look at it by time and materials, managed services that you have, understanding your total bookings, getting into profit or your gross profit margin. We also can track our expenses, labor costs, travel expenses, and commission services very easily as well. And these models can also come out of the box on day one. So I can get into my model library and actually get in and add this travel expense model as a starting point. In my working budget, I can actually tie these models directly to a budget line. So here you can see there's that model we just took a look at for bookings tied directly to my revenue services line here. So when I go into my sheets and I want to start viewing my information, I can see the P&L impact. I can see the cash impact directly in the system. I can track my bookings, track my headcount detail and information, and then view a nice summary view to be shared out to an end user, as well as leveraging interactive assumptions to see how changing my number of reps impacts commissions or any other widget, just leveraging my SIP dashboards. So we are providing you with an amazing ecosystem for your project-based business, allowing you to do project costing seamlessly, track your revenue, make sure you're understanding who's staffed on your engagements, understand from an AI perspective what that time entry looks like, track those employee expenses or connect to a best-in-class tool, and then analyze those projects with out-of-the-box reporting, advanced reporting, or a Sage Intacct planning tool that you can always get as a part of your Sage ecosystem. Again, we have AI also built into this workflow, reestablishing the fact that we are dedicated to creating what we call an intelligent GL. All right, so we'll finish out by just talking about the fact that now that I've tracked my transactions seamlessly, I'm getting better reporting, I want to make sure that my close process is effective and efficient so I can use that reporting to drive data-driven decision making. And we're going to be able to seamlessly do that in Sage Intacct as well. So if I come into Intacct, go to my controller dashboard, I'll be able to come in and easily leverage my close checklist. My close checklists are going to help make sure that I am staying on task as I manage my close process. I can change assignment names, update and adjust tasks, set dependencies, and assign different users. This is a flexible checklist, so it does not have to be the same every single month, every single quarter. I can make adjustments and even restrict users from making certain changes. I can leverage my collaborate functionality here, which is on not only checklists, but transaction records and reports to tag Sage Intacct users or even Salesforce users if I'm integrated to that platform, and they'll get notifications on that in their Collaborate Center or via email. So nice and easy now for me to manage my close process with checklists. The majority of my journal entries are being auto-created with those AR and those AP transactions, and then any additional journal entries I can create one-off, recurring entries, or statistical entries as well. I also can easily manage my bank rec process. This is connecting to up to 10,000 plus banks out of the box. So your bank feed is getting updated on a daily basis. You can do soft reconciliations, making sure we're managing our cash effectively. If I'm a global organization, I can easily set up a multi-entity structure. I can automate that consolidation process, eliminating those intercode transactions at the appropriate time, whether that's daily, weekly, or monthly, and then track my transactional data for that additional entity and the correct base currency like we're doing for the UK here. So we're able to really help organizations manage their business on a global scale. We're automating your processes to make sure you have an effective and efficient close. As we've proven, we have the functionality to make sure you're managing your services organization effectively and efficiently, whether that's US based or a global organization. We work with companies across the globe, making sure that we are effectively and efficiently helping them to grow, that we are making sure they're maintaining compliance, whether that is GAAP or IFRS, as well as making sure that we are the right partner to enable organizations to be successful going forward. So in closing, if you're interested in Sage Intacct, I encourage you to reach out to the team. We're always happy to have conversations about our solutions in greater depth. This is just an overview of the platform and some of the functionality you can get access to on a day one. So when you get to that stage that you need an efficient and effective platform to help you grow, to help you maintain compliance, to make sure you're efficient and effective and able to successfully expand out that business, I encourage you to reach out to Sage Intacct, and one of our team members, just like myself, will be able to help you with that. Thank you again for your time today.